All right, Steve Bamford is here. PGA Championship week. I can't believe we're already here. Feels like yesterday we were talking about Augusta National together. But welcome in, man. Quail Hollow week. I'm so fired up to talk about it with you.
We had a fantastic Augusta National Masters, didn't we?
Matt Rory, you did a
I did say.
I did not fully. I mean, we certainly talked about our shared admiration for him. I did not bet him individually as an outright. I believe you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My first
Congratulations, my
my
friend.
first ever Masters winner since I started tipping golf in 2009. And I'm still on cloud 9. But, and there is a big but, I've got to say I'm overly excited this week because I think with Quail Hollow, PGA Championships, of course we know. It's a
Sure.
course we can dissect. It's a PGA Championship that has very strong trends of what we need to be looking for, and we've got 3. I think Data Golf have promoted Bryson to number
Yeah.
3 in the world, or number 3 in their rankings.
Yeah.
I think we've got the 3 best players in the world potentially playing some very, very good golf at the same time.
On a golf
I
course.
think it's going to be a humdinger.
Yeah. On a golf course that I would add fits their game pretty nicely as well.
Absolutely.
So Quail Hollow, it's a little bit of a different breakdown because we have a ton of data on this golf course. We're both very familiar with this golf course, but my biggest question to you, Steve, is what's going to look different this week at Quail Hollow versus what we saw both in 2017 at the PGA Championship here, that Justin Thomas won in 2017, and the golf course that we are used to every year for the Wells Fargo Championship.
Well, let's look at it from 2 angles. Let's talk 2017. Let's talk Justin Thomas. Worthy of note, North Carolina, that was played in August, ferociously hot.
Yeah.
Ferociously hot.
Yeah.
And that course was frisky, firm, and incredibly fast.
And Bermuda head to toe, no overseed.
That golf course played at 2.5 strokes over par for the field. It was the toughest assignment in 2017 of the whole PGA Tour and major championship rota. Now, I don't think in the mid-May, and I don't think Kerry Haig of the PGA of America would want to anyway. I don't think we're going to see anything as lively as we saw in 2017.
Certainly not.
So, different from what we see at the Wells Fargo, which is now, of course, the truest. But anyway, let's not confuse matters. The Wells Fargo Championship is a traditional tournament on the PGA Tour that is hosted at Quail Hollow Club. The main differences for this are the golf course has had 68 yards added to it from the setup that we saw across the last Wells Fargo that Rory McIlroy won. So the first hole, that's going to be a par 4, just 505 yards to tee off, lads. Just a nice easy hole to start with. 505 yards, 10 yards added to that. The 9th holes had 25 yards added to that. That's a par 4 at 530.
Yeah.
And then the 17th had a 33-yard extension. This is if they play from the tips, of course. That's going to be just the small matter of a 223-yard par 3. Add those together, 68 yards in length added. It's going to be a 7,558 yard. Let me check that. 7,626 yards.
Yeah.
Par 71.
Yeah.
It's just your typical PGA Championship. In terms of the length of course, the difficulty of course. 2 other things of note. Different from 2017, but familiar for Wells Fargo, the agronomy is all going to be overseeded. So the Bermuda grass fairways have perennial ryegrass overseed. That's exactly the same situation for the rough. The greens are still G12 champion Bermuda grass. they will be overseeded with Poa Trivialis. And we see these greens on the PGA Tour now regularly,
all the
week in,
time.
week out,
Yeah.
all the time. You could call the PGA Tour now the Poa Trivialis Tour, in my mind. There's so many courses with this Poa Triv. One thing of note, where we tend to get 2 inches of rough here at Quail Hollow for the Wells Fargo, they have already stated that the target here is going to be 2.75 inches of Bermuda grass, overseeded with perennial ryegrass rough. That for me feels quite light for a major championship.
Yeah, it is. I would say the most notable change, in my opinion, Steve, and I'll expand on why shortly, because I was on the phone with a Quail Hollow member last night trying to figure out what they're trying to do here with the rough at this PGA Championship compared to how it plays for the Wells Fargo. And the 2.75-inch overseeded rough is probably the biggest course change from what we see every year at the Wells Fargo. So that rough that we saw Rory and Xander navigate in 2024 at the Wells Fargo, as you mentioned, that's 2 inches. The difference between 2 and 2.75, we can litigate how much of an impact that is going to have on the actual tournament. But if you're looking for like the number one agronomic changes that they are going to attempt to make to separate this golf course as a PGA Championship venue from a Wells Fargo venue, it's that extra 0.75 inches of rough.
It doesn't need a huge amount of rough, does it, for such a long golf course to cause problems? I do think it plays to the PGA Championship narrative, though, that bombers do have a vast advantage, especially, at a course like Quail Hollow.
Well, I would also add is that thicker rough. A lot of people think that thicker rough tests accuracy. Thicker rough actually ends up testing distance more and separating via distance more. It's the same thing as the winged foot model, right? And I talked about this in depth at Philly Cricket Club. Why distance didn't matter as much as people were saying it did at Philly Cricket Club is because for distance to truly matter at a golf course, for distance to be a skill separator at a golf course, shorter players need to be penalized for not having that skill. It's not about bombers having an advantage. Bombers have an advantage everywhere, but the golf courses where distance really, really matters and you really, really want to factor distance into your calculation are the golf courses where shorter players get screwed, right? And how do shorter players get screwed? Shorter players get screwed when they're hitting middle to long irons out of the rough. Now, I asked this member of Quail Hollow last night, I said, well, I mean, can you get a 7-iron out of this rough? Because they've been growing this rough in for a couple of weeks. So he's played the golf course pretty close to the conditions that we're going to see in a week and a half's time. And we can talk about the weather a little bit too. Like there's going to be some rain as well. It's not going to be the firm and fast, fiery that we wanted and got in 2017. But I will say this, I do think that because of the extra rough, it's going to make this far more of a total driving off the tee challenge than we typically see at Quail Hollow. I mean, statistically, Steve, I know it doesn't really feel this way when you watch the golf course, but if you look at the data from previous Wells Fargo championships, like it's just as much a putting golf course where you need to get crazy hot on the greens as it is a driving golf course. And I do think the addition of the thicker rough this year is at least going to make it a pure driving test where shorter players, they're not behind the 8 ball in the same way that they're going to be in Oakmont in a couple weeks. But I think it's enough of a PGA driving test, maybe a little bit less than Oak Hill. But it's a harder golf course off the tee than, let's say, Valhalla.
Yeah. Valhalla was very simple. You get a lot of canted fairways here, don't you? And also a lot of dog legs, positioning, quite a few elevation changes. Well, Valhalla was just kind of bombs away.
You know
And
what
it
he
was
said
no,
also,
and
Steve?
very early on they said there was literally no penalty for missing fairways at all.
100%. You know what he said too, Steve? He said the reason why Rory McIlroy always plays well at Quail Hollow
Yeah,
is because it's actually, so many of these golf courses on the PGA Tour now, you want to hit a tight fade because, well, that's just the shot shape that is more controllable now, and that's what you see all of the best drivers of the golf ball in the world, particularly the most accurate ones. Your Russell Henleys, your Corey Connors, your Colin Morikawas, all those guys hit like super tight fades off the tee. Rory McIlroy is one of the last guys left that on command can hit a big towering draw. Actually, you know who else does this is Benny On, who finished third at Quail Hollow last year. He told me specifically those who can hit a big high draw off the tee with the way that the fairways are canted. And the first hole is a very good example of this, is that it is more of a drawers golf course off the tee
yeah.
because of the way that the holes are sloping and the advantage that you get if you can carry some of these fairway bunkers out there and cut the corners of the dog leg. I mean, that is tailor made why Rory McIlroy has turned this into, his own personal playground.
Would you say Wyndham Clark had that in his armory?
He
23
hits
winner here.
more.
Can
I
he
mean,
can hit that big
it,
lot high
well,
draw
he's
off
more of
the
a
tee?
cut. He hits more of a big
Mm,
cut, but he does have enough of the carry distance
yeah,
where, because on a lot of these holes, and I already mentioned one because one is such a good example of this, but the hole kind of curves around bunkers on the inside of the dog leg, right? And so if you have that 310, 320-yard carry distance, not only are you able to carry the fairway bunkers, but the ball is also rolling in the shape of the hole. Right.
yeah, of
And
course.
so that's how you end up with like 350-yard drives on this hole. And that's why guys like Rory and Wyndham Clark, particularly Rory, because his ball is turning from left to right, and just have such a tremendous advantage at this golf course. I mean, truly, truly.
If you look at McIlroy, Clark, and Jason Day,
It's another good
Homer's a little
example.
bit fringy on this, but previous winners here over the last few renewals. Jason Day, 20th for distance to apex. McIlroy, third. Wyndham Clark, fifth. And McIlroy last year, 12th. Distance to apex PGA Tour rankings heading into those tournaments. So it just screamed big, high, high carry, long carry, get the ball as high up in the air as you can and hit it as far as you can. It really does scream that.
Yeah. I would also add I mean, these greens are big,
Yeah,
undulating.
they are.
There's been multiple renovations to this golf course over the last couple of years that have been in full efforts to give these greens a little bit more character, a little bit more undulation. Um, and it is, in my opinion, one of the more straightforward examples of like driver putter. Now, this is not me saying that iron play isn't a tremendously important skill set at this golf course. In fact, it is going to be one of the most long iron intensive golf courses that we see on the PGA Tour all year. I mean, I'm basically looking at close to 40% of approach shots are coming from 200 yards plus. And like even those holes, like the ninth hole, for example, that now turns from like a 485-yard par four into a 510 par four, that's a huge difference because that's a difference between an approach shot that's typically hit by most tour pros at 180 yards versus 205 yards. Like that is a really big difference for a lot of these guys. And I'll get your take on this too, but if I'm looking at this from a pretty macro elementary level, like I want guys with either a tremendous amount of power off the tee or excellent long iron play. And I really do think that you either need an elite short game or you need to really roll the rock. It reminds me a lot, Steve, of Congaree. I was at Congaree in November. And Congaree, also a Fazio, by the way, also another golf course that a man named Rory McIlroy has played quite well at. Trust me, that's not a coincidence. But
Also
it's
champion Bermuda grass greens.
there you go. There you go. I mean, but it is, I think about this like golf courses that accentuate power off the tee and have these big undulating short grass everywhere Fazio greens. That's it, man. That's what you're looking for this week. Congaree, driver putter, or 1B to driver can be super, super great at your long irons, but it's a fairly straightforward handicap.
Just to back you up on the putting element, and I think putting something, clearly it's something we don't tend to focus on week to week on the PGA Tour.
And
But
not at major championships either,
well,
right?
yeah, this is it. But I mean, this course does accentuate. I agree exactly what you're saying in terms of strokes gained on the greens. I mean,
Big time.
as we said, 2017, the course was totally different in terms of its firmness, but 2.29 strokes gained per round from tee to green, Justin Thomas. He gained 1.81 per round with the putter. So that's a 56-44 split, tee to green to putting, which is a very high split. So you think, oh, okay, maybe it was just the conditions. But if you look at the last four winners here, Homer, McIlroy, Clark, McIlroy, just look at the total strokes gain. Look how it splits from tee to green to putting. It's still 60% from tee to green and 40% on the
It's a
greens.
much bigger percentage of the strokes gained pie than you would typically think at a hard
Absolutely.
ball striking golf courses.
Team no putt will
Yeah,
not win the PGA Championship. You've got to have someone that's rolling the rock confidently on these Bermuda Poa Trivia screens.
I couldn't agree more. When I was looking at the strokes gained pie breakdown chart, I was consistently surprised to see how spike putting even overwhelmed spike approach play amongst winners, top 5 finishers, and top 10 finishers. And it just becomes a very crucial part of the equation. So, I mean, this is a golf course from a handicapping perspective. I have a lot of confidence in my breakdown, and if I was explaining to people the three big things that you need just to dumb it down to the most simple handicap I could provide possibly, is that power off the tee, a particular bump. If you're able to get the ball going from right to left and hit that high drop, we're going to have 42%, something like that, of long irons. So that's kind of a 1B. If you're not the best driver in the ball, you better be an awesome, awesome long iron player.
Yeah.
And then number 3, and I'm looking for at least 2 out of these 3 skill sets, or they're a total cross off for me. Is I want guys who have putted very well on Champion Bermuda, guys that have putted very well on Poa Trivialis, guys that putt very good lag putters, guys who two putt a lot from 30 feet, right? Two
Yeah.
putt a lot on fast, undulating Champion Bermuda. That's pretty much it. I mean, we'll talk about the comp courses in a second, but to me, I mean, the way that this PGA Championship is going to be presented with the thicker rough, it's kind of just like, I don't know, Congaree meets Bay Hillish meets,
Yeah.
I mean, Congaree's the real big one, but you know,
Yeah, I can see Bay Hill in it, just looking at past results. I mean, I've got one.
because of the thicker rough this year,
Mm,
Bay Hill is a great total driving test. And
yes.
because of the thick rough this year, you're going to get more of that Bay Hill total driving test.
Just look at the winners here: Clark, McIlroy, Homer, Day. They've all got decent records around Bay Hill. Just
Yeah.
to throw into context, that 60-40 tee to green split. Last 5 winners at Augusta National do this exactly the same exercise. 92% from tee to green, just 8% with the putter, and of course Rory won there a few weeks ago with a negative strokes gain number.
Yeah.
So it just shows you the difference between Augusta National and the skill that's required there from tee to green and on the relatively on the greens compared to what we're going to see at Quail Hollow.
Is there anything on the golf course that you want to add before we start talking about who's going to win the golf tournament?
I don't think so. I just genuinely think it's
this is the easiest.
We're on the
golf
same
course.
page here. I think length, long irons, fantastic champion or Bermuda Poa Trivialius spike putters.
This is, Steve, I got to be honest, this is, I think, now, trust me, it certainly is far from guaranteeing that either of us will have picked the right winner of the golf tournament. But as far as handicapping goes, especially after like talking to that member last night and really understanding the difference of how this golf course is going to play compared to 2017 and compared to previous Wells Fargo's, and the thicker rough basically only affects how we want to model out off the tee, but very straightforward, man. Like very, and by the way, he said the exact same thing in terms of like winning score, Steve. Like, cause I asked him, I said, some of these memberships, they get really prickly about winning score and they're very prideful and they care. I mean, this is going to be a big time narrative at Oakmont, Steve, where the president of the club is already coming out and telling the director of the USGA, we want an over par winning score. Right. From my understanding, Quail Hollow's membership is not like that. He was like, listen, we just want the golf course to be presented in the most fun and engaging way possible. Winning score -10, -10, -11. Maybe some guy shoots -12. But you think about the 2024 Wells Fargo, Rory shot -17, Xander shot -12, and those were the only two guys that shot 10 under par.
Ben on 9 under.
Yeah, the golf course played to a 0.65 scoring average, probably gets to plus 0.1, but that's about it. I mean, 12 under par sound right to you?
Yeah, low teens. It's the kind of course where you're going to get some separation, I think, though.
Yeah,
I think you might find there's 2 or 3 players that kind of separate themselves from the rest. It's that kind of course where that can actually happen. I mean, as you said, we saw that at Wells Fargo last year with McIlroy and the Xander head-to-head, where they were just absolutely miles ahead of the rest.
Yeah. 2024, you had -0.72. Throw that one out the window. Valhalla was super soft. This is going to play way harder than Valhalla. But 2023 at Oak Hill was plus 2.43. I doubt, I'd be shocked. This is going to be, what was the 2017 one? It was plus 0.21. It's not going to be as difficult as it was here in 2017, no chance, but it's also going to be harder than it is for a typical Wells Fargo, which is plus 0.65. So for me, it's +1, plus 1.25. Shall we talk about the players, the betting board?
Let's try and separate the top 3 in the betting. Good luck with that.
Talk me through the top. I wanna hear, because I agree with you. I think that there are 3 players that it feels like are all going to be there, right? So I want to hear from you. I mean, how would you rank these guys? I'm of course talking about Rory, Bryson, and Scotty Scheffler.
I was looking this morning at Scotty Scheffler's price from the Masters, and you could physically argue. I mean, I'm seeing over here in the UK, one particular operator offering 5 to 1 on Scotty Scheffler, which in the current,
it's not bad.
It's not. That's not a bad price for Scotty Scheffler, in my view.
Yeah.
Of the big 3, I think Scheffler's the weakest of the 3.
Interesting.
And my reasoning for that is he has no course experience.
Well, President's Cup.
Well, President's Cup.
But in terms of challenge flag there, he wasn't great at the President's Cup, in fairness, though.
His schedule, the fact that he focuses on the Texas events, and that's great, means that he often has missed out at Quail Hollow. The other thing that he has got as an advantage is he's got a caddy on the bag that used to be Bubba Watson's caddy, and Bubba Watson around here, around Quail Hollow, wasn't a bad player, was he? So
yeah, it's a good point.
I still think ultimately, I personally would put Scheffler below the other two. I'm concerned with Rory. I don't, and history teaches us this. The major and majors after capturing a green jacket tend to be quite sticky for those that win the Masters.
I mean, how many times have we had a guy go on to win the PGA Championship in the same year as winning the Masters?
Well,
Last
the only
time,
one I can find since 2010
Tiger.
that won the first two majors on the Trotters course was Jordan Spieth in 2015.
That's the last time it's happened, and then prior to that, I mean, we're just talking about like Tiger Woods stuff. It doesn't happen very often.
Yes. Now Spieth won the Masters. Back then, we then waited till June to get to the US Open. He won that on those Cabbage Patch greens when Dustin Johnson two-putted from about, 12 feet, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, he won those first two majors. And then from that point on, I mean, you look at Phil Mickelson, Svart, you just go through the list. There's only two winners of the Masters since 2010. That's Bubba Watson and Scotty Scheffler that have actually gone on to win other majors. Watson won the 2014 Masters and Scheffler's won the 22 and the 24 Masters. All I'm saying is John Rahm. There's some big names here. Matsuyama, Patrick Reed, players here that haven't gone on to win. I just think that mentally, and especially when you've just won, it's going to go one of two ways with Rory, isn't it? It's either going to inspire him, and we were discussing this on our podcast yesterday. It will either inspire him, and he's on a golf course that he's won on 4 times, and he will win this, and then all of a sudden we're talking about, my Lord, Rory could win at Oakmont, and then he's going into Portrush, and he could clear the 2025 major. He could just clear the board.
Yeah.
Or Rory's going to go the way of so many green jacket winners, and it just kind of will be, Rory finished tied 19th at Quail Hollow.
Yeah.
I need to see something in Philadelphia this week from Rory to really persuade me.
Yeah.
The guy that for me is I've been sweet on this guy probably since the start of the year for Quail Hollow.
Bryson.
I just think it's Bryson DeChambeau's time.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I just think his game is made for Quail. I really do.
The way that he's driving the ball right now on Liv, and your mileage may vary on how much you want to evaluate the strokes gain metrics that they use, but just in terms of the eye test from what I've watched over Liv the past couple of weeks. And I watched a little bit of Doral. I watched a decent amount of Chapultepec where he ended up just losing to Joaquin Niemann. It's different, right? Like it passes the eye test too, Steve. Like he is driving the ball at a level that probably only Rory McIlroy is even capable of right now in terms of matching what Bryson's doing off the tee. And the thing that I would add is he's hitting the ball remarkably straight at the moment. Like it is not him just murdering the ball 40 or 50 yards offline, even though you can to a certain extent do that at Quail Hollow. Bryson's hitting the ball remarkably straight. And we saw at Augusta, even though it started to fall apart down the stretch, I would say his touch on short grass around the greens has improved dramatically. I mean, that was a huge takeaway for me at Augusta, is that even if Bryson doesn't have his A+ stuff from tee to green, this is now a guy that on the strength of his short game and putter can even win golf tournaments without an A+ driving performance.
I can hear people sucking through teeth, but I must say this, and I know that total driving is a ridiculously simplistic statistic, but I'm just counting up Bryson DeChambeau's live performances this year, and over the last 5 live outings and the Masters, he has ranked #1 for total driving across 5 of those 6 tournaments. That is ridiculous. And at Jack Nicklaus course over in South Korea last week, he hit the ball 341 yards on average and was 6th for driving accuracy. Incredible. And scrambling, just 93.3. So he's playing some phenomenal golf right now, Bryson DeChambeau. And if you actually just went, I mean, if there's 2 golf tournaments in the major schedule that are made for Bryson, it's clearly US Open, PGA Championship.
Yeah.
In course setup, Parkland long golf courses, especially these days between the USGA set up on a US Open. It's interesting what you're saying about Oakmont and the members, but just the way that the USGA have eased the scoring confines for the US Open recently, and the PGA to a certain extent, the PGA of America have, I wouldn't say toughened, but they just let a golf course play as it should. That's Kerry Haig's way. Those kind of tournaments are almost converging in terms of just what they are. Yeah. Bryson's just made for a PGA Championship, and he's made for a US Open. So for me, he's the guy that I've already backed. And
what price did you get in at?
I tell you exactly when I backed him. I backed him on the evening after the first round at Chapultepec.
Yeah, great bet.
And I got 16 on Betfair Exchange.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he is settling around 12 to 14.
Yeah. He's a bit shorter over here.
Now looking at Quail Hollow and the way that golf course is going to be presented, there's so many people that are holding 18s and 20s on Bryson because the second the Masters ended, I came on my podcast and during my recap show was like, Bryson is going to settle as the 3rd man on the odds board. He is the 3rd best player in the world right now. I don't care what Ludwig or Xander or Colin Morikawa is doing. Bryson is the 3rd best player in the world right now, and he is going to go off at the PGA Championship as the 3rd best player in the world. And I wish I had a 17 or 18 to 1 to show for it. I do still kind of feel like, Steve, even, if you're holding a 16, 17, or 18 on Bryson, I feel like you should feel like you're stealing a little bit and you're starting this golf tournament a little bit on second base, because in my opinion, I almost feel equally about the 3. Like I don't feel that Scotty Scheffler or Rory McIlroy in this case have like demonstrably more win equity than Bryson, who, has been relevant at 3 of the last 4 majors and is finally getting a golf course that he's played well in the past, fits into his skill set like a T. Like it just almost is like, okay, if you narrow down the field to those 3 guys and you say, let's give all 3 of them a somewhat equal chance to win, because it's tough choosing between the 3. So it's like 33%, 33%, 33%. Bryson is still the one numerically where you're going to feel like you have the most value there. And the only other way that I would bet this board, Steve, would be, taking out the big 3 and trying to pick the guy who wins without the big 3. And that actually feels harder than just choosing between the 3 guys that I think is going to win.
We've got one operator over here. I mean, this is extreme. They've gone 4 to 1 Rory McIlroy, 9 to 2 Scotty Scheffler, and 7 to 1 Bryson DeChambeau.
I don't think he should be 7 to 1.
No, that's crazy. We've got some operators over here on 10s, but you can still pick up quite a lot of 12 to 1 over here on DeChambeau right now.
Yeah. I mean, biggest
They are each
counter.
way terms, by the way, of course.
Yeah. Are we really going to get two major championships in a row where, the water cooler guy wins, right? The guy that makes the most sense heading into the major championship and has the golf course fit and has all of the trends and has the recent form and has the course history. Is golf betting that easy? Two majors in a row? Perhaps.
We'll find out.
Yeah. Um, Once we get past the big three, what has your attention in this next tier?
There's one player in there. I'm looking here at Oberg, the defending champion Xander. I don't think Xander's right at the moment. John Rahm. I just don't think Colin Morikawa's got the weapons for Quail.
They
Not to
all
win it.
just feel a few minor details off. Minor details, but like the type of minor details that are going to make it difficult to beat Scotty Scheffler or Rory or Bryson over the course of 72 holes.
The one I'm very closely monitoring at Philadelphia Cricket Club is Justin Thomas.
Okay. It's got some good history here.
It was not bad, is it? One major played here, one win. His win at the RBC was on a Carolina golf course. Yes, it's completely the antipathy of this, but it does feature the same agronomy, the same kind of dog legs, just the same geography and climate. He's a winner here. I prefer him on shorter golf courses, but the PGA Championship he did win in 2022 was on a 7,600 yard par 70. So it's not to say he can't win on big boy golf courses. He's been putting so much better this season. I think personally, he's far better on southeastern agronomy than he is on northeastern agronomy that we're seeing him on this week in Philadelphia. And lo and behold, tee to green game so far has been good, but he can't make a putt on the greens. He's struggling on the greens.
Mm-hmm.
Role reversal, take him back to champion Bermuda grass with Paris overseed. There's something in there with JT. He might be one that I do actually go with as part of my selection structure.
JT Neiman and the guy that I wanted to talk about, which is Victor Hovland,
Yeah.
I think would be the three guys that if I was going in a non-big three direction, I would probably have the most interest in. My biggest concern probably with JT is like, I don't think that this golf course is a pure iron fest. And I think about, Heritage, for example, where that tournament, TPC Sawgrass is another one like this. And that's why I think he's played so well there. I like JT more so on shorter golf courses, at least right now.
Yeah.
His greatest skill to me is his short iron play, and that's why I think he's going to have another good week at Philly Cricket. And that's not Quail Hollow by any means. Of course, it hasn't stopped him from winning there in the past in 2017, obviously. But I don't know if the total driving is as well rounded as it was in 2017. Hovland, is the guy that I keep kind of coming back to in my brain in terms of, gosh, what a great PGA Championship already. I was on him at Valhalla and he almost won that golf tournament in essentially no form. He was in the mix heavily, almost winning at Oak Hill. And obviously he kind of got that monkey off his back this year already at the Valspar Championship, which has those Poa Trivialis greens that we're talking about, and even
Carolina type of course as well, yeah.
even a sneaky amount of long irons at Valspar, and
Yeah. Same
kind of
agronomy.
sneaky similar rough too at Valspar
Mhm.
as well. So
Yeah.
my concern is it doesn't look like things are coming together for him at Philly Cricket right now. He's like T55 on Friday morning.
That is the trouble with Victor. I do agree with you, JT. I said I prefer him on shorter courses where the emphasis isn't on driver. I
Yeah.
think on a golf course where he has to take driver out of the bag and not a 90% drive, it needs to be towards the extending himself off the tee, the full 95, 100%. That's when you get the huge dispersion with JT's driver, which can get him into some serious trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yes, Hovland's an interesting player, but you just want to see a spark. But at
35
33 to
feels
1,
like
I mean, that's what I'm seeing over here. I think Hovland's numbers, his shape of game does suit this golf course. He was third here on Quail Hollow debut, so he's got form on the golf course as well. What's your view on Joaquin and majors? In my view, if there's going to be one major where he does make a breakout, it's likeliest to be the PGA Championship, just because of the attributes that you need to play well at a PGA Championship, suit him down to the ground.
Well said. I'm with you, and that was going to be my next question. Is I wanted to get your opinion on Brooks and Neiman. I think Neiman is going to play quite well this week. I wouldn't say that he is under heavy consideration for me as an outright bet. I generally think that he is just too talented of an overall golfer to not find success in major championships at one point. But I also don't think that he is going to skip the proverbial step of contending in one or two before he wins. Although um, the counter to that would be someone like Wyndham Clark, right? Where
Yeah.
Wyndham Clark didn't have a top 80 in 4 appearances at a major championship, and they straight up won the US Open. Is Joaquin Neiman talented enough to do what Wyndham Clark did? It seems like it.
The problem
I'll
is
tell
you're
you
not
this.
getting
Yeah.
Wyndham Clark odds, are you? You're getting 33 to 1 odds
You're
on
getting
WAC.
33 to 1, and I would still, based on the major championship history, I would still rather back Victor Hovland to win this week at the same number as Neiman. Wouldn't you? Probably.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. Neiman is maybe feels more likely to top 20 because you could always get bad Victor, and it just feels like the way that Neiman is driving the ball right now on this golf course, he would have to really, it feels like, choke to give away some of his ball striking advantage here. But I would still probably favor Victor, at least as an outright bet. What about Brooks? I mean, have we reached an inflection point with him at 45 to 1 where you have interest again? Because I probably have to say it's a no for me, but I'm monitoring for Oakmont.
I think my major championship relationship with Brooks was ultimately broken last year in
Yeah,
24.
your
I
best
just
days are
don't.
behind you.
I don't even see any green shoots, and just don't see them. Just can't do it. There's nothing that I'm seeing statistically or just on the golf course with some of the live action I see. It's sporadic at best. There's no consistency. There is another live player I like, but he's deeper in the odds.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, okay, before we finish up with, the guys 50 plus and some longer shots, do we spend enough time on Xander and Rom? That's my final question for you. Did we skip past Xander, Rom, and I guess Colin, who's playing quite well this week at Philly Cricket, although it's a much different golf course on approach than Philly Cricket. But did we give those guys enough proper attention? And of those 3, if I told you Xander, Morikawa, Rom, they're all at 22 to 1, who's the most likely to win?
I don't think any of
It's
them.
got
I don't think
yeah.
any of them will win. Who's the most likely?
It's gotta be Xander, right, though?
if Xander was right,
Yeah.
yes, but
Yeah.
there's always an element that's wrong at the moment. If it's the driver, the driver hasn't been good, the approach play's been excellent, and then he sorts the driver out, and then of course the approach play degrades. I think theoretically, yes, I would probably take Xander. I just don't think Colin Morikawa's got the pop to win a 7,600 yard PGA Championship test, and Rahm, he's kind of.
I
I get the
still,
same Brooks Koepka vibe from Rahm, but though Rahm's playing at a far higher level than Koepka, I just don't see it with John Rahm at the moment.
yeah, I still think we're going to hear from him in a big way at a major championship. And
Yeah, to be fair, I wouldn't. If you're looking at any of the courses, I don't think Oakmont would be a bad fit with the Poana.
Why not
You know,
Portrush
we know
either?
that he loves
Yeah.
the Poana.
Yeah. Okay, so this next tier 50 plus, it's not, I know, Phil has broken everything, but the way that the PGA Championship continues to be set up and presented, uh, I, I guess you could certainly make an argument that this golf tournament is more conducive to long shots than, say, the U.S. Open, but I'm still at major championships in 2025. Like, I'm generally trying to pick my guys at the top. And I think these guys mainly we will be speaking about in the context of, top 20 bets. I really don't know if I see any of these guys over the course of 72 holes beating Bryson, Rory, or Scotty, but who would be your favorite, 50 plus as we work farther down the board?
We've pulled together some strokes gained data for Quail Hollow, specifically since 2017, since the Fazio redesign. I'll take you through the top 10 of players in that data who have played multiple rounds, okay? 10 is Xander. 9 is Keith Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Bear that in mind. 8 is Hideki Matsuyama. 7 is JT. 6, Ricky Fowler. 5, Bryson DeChambeau. 4, Max Homer. 3, Jason Day. 2, Patrick Reed. Rory McIlroy. Yeah, clear, way over the horizon in number 1. The player I really do like for this, and I just like the way that he's already shown at Augusta this year that this guy is determined. I think he's determined to try and get into the United States Ryder Cup team. He's got limited outings because he's a live player. He's fringy. He keeps fighting his way towards the edge of the top 50 in the world. We know that there's a top 60 cutoff for the US Open coming soon. I just love Patrick Reed.
Yeah.
Absolutely love Patrick Reed. And I love him so much that I've put some of my own money on him this morning. I managed to get 130. So 100,
My goodness.
130 on the exchange today as a trade on Patrick Reed.
That's quite the number, Steve.
So he's 90 to 1, I can see over here with one operator. And the other thing with Patrick Reed, loves Champion Bermuda grass.
Obviously played great in 2017.
Look at his stats as well. They're basic stats on live to a certain degree, but he's added length to his driving. He's hitting tons and tons of fairways. He's very, very high on his greens in reg. And we just know with Reed, and we saw at Augusta, he's just a fantastic putter. And just look at the golf course, look at what we've been saying, the split between tee to green and 40% on putting, the fact that he ranks number 2 in our analysis. I'm just all over Patrick Reed.
Yeah.
He basically needs to force Keegan Bradley to get him to pick him, and the only way you can do that is
playing well in major championships. I agree with you, to be on the Ryder Cup
team. I don't say he wins, but I could see him in the top 5, top 6, close of Sunday, no problem at all.
Yeah,
second here at the PGA in 2017.
The players that I would add in this price range, I might be a little bit more distance heavy than you, Steve, in terms of the players that have my attention. I just worry about, there's a couple holes where like Patrick Reed is going to be approaching this green from 230 yards, where somebody like Wyndham Clark or Minwoo Lee is going to be approaching the green from 180 yards. And like Minwoo Lee, for example, that golf course at Memorial Park
Yeah.
is actually not a bad comp by any means. And Quail Hall is going to play harder and a little bit firmer because there was a lot of rain at Houston this year, but like that golf course is essentially just, and I used Quail Hollow as a comp that week, but that golf course is essentially just hit driver everywhere and get crazy hot on these big undulated overseeded green complexes, right? And we just saw Minwoo Lee take driver elite lag putting skill to the max and win that golf tournament in the same
Yeah.
way that Wyndham Clark essentially did at Quail Hollow in the past, and I mean, I guess LACC to a certain extent as well. I think that skill set of driver putter is going to play tremendously well at this major championship, and I think of the guys 100th plus, the best two driver putters that I could find, that combo, elite putter and a lot of power off the tee, is probably Wyndham and Minwoo.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I like Minwoo. I think if you're looking for someone in that range as well, someone that's absolutely fantastic, and you mentioned this towards the top of the show, if we haven't got the driving element, the pure power, we need someone that's great with their long irons and someone that can putt lights out on Champion Bermuda grass.
Yeah.
I think there are worse bets out there than Sepp Straka.
I knew you were going there. The second you said lights out with the irons, because Sepp Straka, I mean, statistically, Sepp Straka has been like the second best iron player in the world this season.
Phenomenal.
I mean, his approach play this year is totally out of control, and he's having another good week at Philly Cricket as well.
Yeah.
As we sit here on Friday morning. I don't have a lot to add. Maybe the last guy that I would throw out there, because he's a lefty and hits a big cut kind of in the same way that Rory as a righty hits a big slinging draw, is like Akshay.
Yeah.
Akshay is a great putter, man. Akshay is a super, super underrated putter who's putted quite well on this overseeded Poa Trivialis in the past. Even his win at Valero was on the exact same green complexes in terms of the agronomy. So, I mean, that's kind of it for me. I mean, there's some good numbers here. Taylor Pendrith, who's finished top 10 at Quail Hollow at 200 to 1, is a good number, but it kind of feels like a refrigerator bet. Like you're making a good bet because the number is maybe higher than it should be based on the course fit of him compared to others in this price range. But if you're giving me, Steve, and I don't know what the price on this would be, I could do some quick mental math, but if you're giving me Rory, Scotty, Bryson versus the field, I think it's one of the rare times where I would take the big three.
There is a history though of some. I always look at things from an each way perspective because I'm over here in the UK. But Dietrich, top 5 last year, 200 to 1. Rose 200 to 1.
Dean Burmester, yeah.
McIntyre was 250 to 1 and placed last year. Go to the year before that. Cameron Davis 275. Kitayama 200. Straka 400 to 1 at Oak Hill placed. There's one player I mentioned in those strokes gained rankings, long off the tee, hasn't got a great record in majors. I understand that. He was 20th last year at the US Open. That was his best ever major finish. He's playing golf from the stars, especially in round ones. Keith Mitchell.
Yeah.
That might be one out there that, I'm seeing 175 to 1 right now on Keith Mitchell, and he's leading in Pennsylvania at the moment as we're recording this. So Keith Mitchell, there's going to be some kind of 200 to 150 to 1 chance out there that does get in the mix in terms of an each way payout.
Yeah.
So that's the one I would probably focus on right now.
I don't have much more, Steve. I thought we did an excellent job breaking this down, as if I might say so, humbly,
We're on the
of
same
course, as
wavelength.
always. I
We
think,
tend to be,
yeah.
don't we, Andy? We're on the same kind of wavelength.
I do think so, and I feel quite good about it. I feel quite good about my breakdown, particularly having a lot of that confirmed to me, by speaking to a couple members and then having
Mm.
you confirm it from across the pond as well. I think we may have a little bit more to sink our teeth into in Oakmont in a couple weeks' time, because that's a fascinating golf course in terms of how that golf course is going to be presented and played. But um, I feel like I know what I'm gonna at least see at Quail Hollow,
Yeah. I
this
don't think
next
there's going to be
week.
any shocks.
Right. All right, Steve, where can all the listeners find the rest of your work, over the next couple of days?
At Golf Betting, at Golf Betting System. That's the website. I'm at Bamford Golf on X. You can follow me on Blue Sky as well, Steve Bamford on there. Content's going to be this. We're going to have masses of data,
Yeah.
strokes gained analysis, the PGA Championship form, Quail Hollow form, predictor models. And our podcast will be out on Tuesday. I'm trying to not get confused with the dates. Tuesday, the 13th of May, the Golf Betting System podcast with our final selections for the PGA Championship. Thanks for having me on, Andy.
Always, Steve. It was a pleasure as always, and we'll talk again shortly for Oakmont.